The Home Affairs Department is rolling out a hybrid access model in a bid to make the services more accessible to citizens. Just yesterday, President Cyril Ramaphosa opened a new branch in Mokopane, Limpopo. He also unveiled 100 new mobile offices. Home Affairs Minister Dr. Motsoaledi joins me now in studio to tell us more about this. Minister, welcome and congratulations on launching these new offices.
Thank you, Mashechaba.
This is a big deal, very important indeed. Let's get into the nitty-gritties. According to the Waterberg district manager, that particular building has been idling for a very, very long time. And apparently the members of that community have been waiting for this office for a very, very, very long time. What should we be looking into with regards to this particular timing of these developments?
No, Mashechaba, it was not idling. It was not idling at all. It was not just being finished. And it's one of the developmental problems that the country needs to look into. There are 4 offices that were commissioned by Home Affairs, which are huge and state-of-the-art. One was this very Mokopane office. The other is in Thohoyandou. The other one is in KwaDukuza in KZN, and then in Daung in Northwest. All of them have been fighting that they get finished. And unfortunately, the contractors that they hired there have been changed many times. Some collapsed on the way and they said, no, the company is no more. There must be a new tender. Remember, they are not built directly by Home Affairs. They are built for us by Public Works.
You outsource from Public Works?
Yes, I've had several meetings with them. In fact, this one we opened yesterday. I met them in October. And they promised me that it will be ready in 2 weeks' time, and we arranged for the opening. But then they came and said the contractor experienced serious problems. He can't finish. We've got to look for a new contractor.
Yeah.
So it has been a battle, and us in Home Affairs, we're not really happy about that. But
so
unfortunately,
for the naysayers, it's not just that this is part of electioneering.
That's rubbish. I mean, Mashechaba, tell me, are you guys expecting that now that the election will stop the work we've been doing? These offices have been under construction.
Fair enough.
And they are ready. I will have opened them in October if they finish. Believe you me, I can even show you the minutes where I met with the Minister and Deputy Minister of Public Works, and I say, please finish these offices because people are waiting for the services. Because when they queue out in small offices, you are the ones who attacked me and say, what's Home Affairs doing? Then I said, I needed these offices. They promised, they said 2 weeks, and I was celebrating, but
all right.
The contractor
and speaking of time and minutes, we are exactly 20 days and 22 hours away from the national elections, Minister. So I preempt that we'll be seeing a lot more movement and action being taken by the Department of Home Affairs. But let's talk about the action that has been taken so far. Now, we know that the Waterberg district has 5 municipalities, and the largest of the 5 being the Mogalakwena, which has well over 370,000 citizens, excuse me. So the question now is, with this particular building servicing all of these residents, are you well equipped? Are you well staffed? Talk to me about your capacity of the Mokopane office in Limpopo.
Oh, it's one of the best, as I said. It's a state of the art. If you saw people who were interviewed there, they themselves were saying so. That is now open. They sit under shade. They sit on chairs. They don't have to stand in queues like you used to do in the past. They are very happy about it. But remember, Home Affairs have got 412 offices countrywide. We don't just choose one office per municipality. We have got an access model where we put up our offices. And so even in Waterberg itself, we have got offices in many other areas. It's just that this one is one of its own kind. When we were starting to design office ourselves, because usually what used to happen in most of the offices, you just tell Department of Public Works, I want the Home Affairs office. They go out using their own procedures to look for it and put it. It might not be appropriate for what you need it for, if you understand what I mean.
Right.
Yes, because they just get somebody's building who is a business person, they say,
and that's it. They copy and paste.
Let's
talk about that.
That's used to happen.
Yeah.
And in building these ones I've mentioned.
Let's expand on that. Let's talk about the design. How is it designed to not only capacitate
no,
to
these
serve,
new
also
ones
to accommodate
are designed
that
directly by us
market.
because we know what we want in a Home Affairs office. You know that you want one corner for people who must apply, the other corner for collections, the other corner for, you know, marriage and all that. So we designed it ourselves, and that's why it's so appropriate rather than being hired. Actually, I've made this complaint in public that what we've been doing was wrong, and we need to move away from that. That you see, you look at schools, hospitals, clinics, police stations, and Home Affairs offices. If you look at them, they serve the same purpose. It's civic services to the public. But the others I've mentioned, schools, police station, hospital, they are built for that purpose.
Okay.
Specifically, but Home Affairs, you go to Public Works and say, I'm looking for an office here.
It's not tailored specifically.
It's not tailored specific, and I've been complaining and say, we need to move away from that.
On that matter, how do you then, it'd be interesting to know what is the #1 need so far of South Africans, particularly in the marginalized areas, because we know IDs have been reportedly over and over consistently been a #1 issue. But I'd like to hear from you. What has been the biggest challenge or the biggest need from a service provision point of view?
Look, I've been going around from the 27th, from August 2022 into villages with trucks. And there I address stakeholders. And that's exactly what I tell them, that the Department of Home Affairs is the most important. You know, yesterday, the president was naming the importance of department to the country. And he said, of course, presidency is #1. That's fair. Then he mentioned finance. That's fair. You can't do anything without money.
Absolutely.
Then he mentioned police for security reasons. Then he mentioned the army. Then he mentioned Home Affairs. I laughed because I usually tell people that all these other departments, that include education and health.
Are not possible without Home Affairs.
Even SARS.
You are doing nothing without an ID.
Even SARS. SARS has raised 1 trillion rand, and the country is happy about it. They exceeded their margins. I can tell you they will have done nothing without Home Affairs.
Absolutely.
Even now, for the elections, the IEC...
Which brings me to my next point.
Yes,
as much as, you know, I laugh, but jokes aside...
The reason that
ID,
you have got what is called what you call a voter's roll.
Right.
It's because of Home Affairs.
Of Home Affairs. So now
we
let's talk about the ID
to
holders who may not have an ID at the time of the 29th of May when it's time to vote. Of course, people lose their IDs all the time. What happens? We know that there are emergency services for those who need
Let me make it
IDs.
clear,
Have you made provision for that, Minister?
Let me make it clear, Mashechaba. If anybody on the 29th doesn't vote because they don't have an ID, it will have been out of choice. Definitely. I'm repeating, it will have been out of choice. On the 29th, all Home Affairs offices will be open. From the time the voting stations are open until they close. Anybody who might even have lost an ID overnight can go there and take a TIC.
Although, Minister, some might argue that they might be open, but will they be properly functioning? Because we know that one of the biggest challenges of Home Affairs in terms of its
functionality
are the long queues and the tedious processes. While we're staying with IDs, let's talk about your branch appointment booking system.
No. I need to explain that because it's important for the voters.
Okay.
Even if you lose your ID overnight, you will go to Home Affairs. They will give you a TIC, meaning a temporary identification certificate. The IEC allows that for the purpose of voting. And you get it same time. It's not like an ID where you go and apply and get it in 2 weeks' time. When you leave that office, you'll be having it and you'll be going to vote. That I can guarantee you. And over the past 3 weeks, we've been opening Home Affairs offices every Saturday for people who have applied for their IDs to come and collect them. Because many IDs were just there in Home Affairs office, people not coming to collect them. So I'm repeating myself, anybody who won't vote because they don't have an ID, that will be because of their choice.
All right, that's a very bold statement, and we'll certainly hold you to it, Minister.
Please.
Let's talk about your recently launched branch appointment booking system. How effective is the system, especially when it comes to alleviating at least a little bit of the pressure from the system, in particular, the influx of people who are going to Home Affairs?
Well, it is working very well. BAPS, the branch appointment booking system, it's exactly, it was established in June 2022, so it means it's 23 months old. In these 23 months, 3 million people applied for it, but 1.6 million took their slots. In other words, took their appointments. And we've been striving and telling our officials that if somebody has booked, they must be served within 15 minutes. You can't tell somebody to come in the office at 10 o'clock and by 10:15, they've not yet been served. We're striving for that. But barring technical problems, that's exactly how the BAPS has been working. And up to so far, many people appreciate it.
And now let's talk about the process of naturalization, because this is one of the questions that came in from our viewers. So for those who've passed the process of naturalization, why does it take so long? And in this particular case, we've got a citizen who is from Lesotho, who has been in South Africa for 10 years, is married to a South African citizen. They have 2 beautiful babies. And the question now is, especially when it comes to the relationship between South Africa and Lesotho, what is the holdup at Home Affairs and how can it be fixed, most importantly?
Well, I don't know what holdup you're talking about.
Yeah.
But one
in particular, this was
other.
the Bloemfontein office.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, we can't judge Home Affairs on the basis of what happened to individuals. People differ. They are not the same. Their backgrounds are not the same. And the cases are more complex than you just think. You're not just talking of Lesotho here. You are talking of a particular couple, a particular individual. And so each case we take according to its own merit as to what steps it should take.
How long should it take, Minister, for instance, in that, just given the general facts that we have, how long should the process of naturalization take? At most?
Well, look, first of all, when you come to this country, if you marry a South African, it is your right to become a South African citizen, according to our laws. But after the marriage, it must take 5 years before you get a permanent residence permit, right? And after 5 years, you apply for a permanent residence. From there, you start the process of naturalization. After that, it shouldn't take long because the permanent residence is one step, is the last step rather, towards naturalization. And I can't say we are going to naturalize everybody simply because they are from Lesotho.
Sure.
As you say, our relationship with them, it depends again on the circumstances. For instance, some of the complexities which we are trying to change in the laws is that to get permanent residence, you should stay here, you should not even go out for a particular period. If you go out, that period of 5 years is cut off. And we believe that's very tedious. In the new white paper on immigration, those are some of the things we're going to be looking at.
All right, fantastic. Minister, thank you so much. So come 29 May, anybody that doesn't have an ID, it is because it is their choice.
Yes, unless they don't deserve it. Let me add that. It doesn't mean anybody who wants an ID deserves it. If they deserve it and they are South Africans, to be their choice. And I'm speaking specifically about those who will have lost them. And I'm not talking about those who are applying for the first time, because then they'll have to be checked and rechecked and all that. But I'm talking about you, Mashechaba. If when you sleep on the 28th, when you wake up, your ID is nowhere to be found, then you go to any Home Affairs office, any nearest Home Affairs office, you get a TIC. We even know that some people have left their IDs with machonisas, by the way. Really? Yes. And they come and say...
They don't have an ID
they
because bakolota come.
Yeah, bakolota.
But habalola ta ID.
Machonisas won't give them IDs until they pay, which we don't like. But even those, because they won't tell us, but we know they are there. Even those, we still give them TICs because we don't think machonisas must be given the power to disenfranchise South Africans.
Yeah, but if you owe, you owe. We can't get into that conversation. But we
can't stop you from voting.
Right. Okay, no, I get you.
We can't stop you from voting. So we also give them. Yeah. As I'm saying, they won't tell us my ID with machonisa. They just look for some excuse that, no, last night I misplaced it and all that.
On another more serious note, Minister, as we've been watching in absolute agony over the last 48 hours with the building collapse in George, in the Western Cape, of a 5-story building where 75 construction workers had been working when the building had collapsed, and currently there are 39 who are still buried, presumably alive, until the 3-day rescue and recovery period has concluded, and then it will become a recovery effort. We've been speaking to everyone on site. There have been over 200 emergency personnel who've availed themselves on the ground tirelessly. We've spoken to the families. What about the foreign nationals who are on site, who are victims of this tragedy? One of the families mentioned that his son does not have an ID a permit, a legitimate work permit to be in South Africa, but he's one of the victims of this tragedy.
Well, Mashechaba, that's very tragic. What we've seen there is quite painful. We're extending our deepest condolences to the family members of those who were affected by this act, and we believe we'll get to the bottom of it. As to the issue of documentation, Mashechaba, it is grossly illegal for any employer to hire a person who came into the country illegally, who doesn't have any documentation. It should not happen, and it's very clear in the Immigration Act. If we come across such employer, we'll have to charge them. And I believe you are aware that as to checking employers, whether they've met the requirement, the labor regulations, that is checked by the Department of Employment and Labor. We only come in when it comes to documentation, and if we indeed find that you don't have documents but you were hired in any manner, that's illegal, and the person ought to be charged. The employer ought to be charged. Even with this strategy, if any employer has done that, then it's double jeopardy for them. Because firstly, it will be how the building collapsed, what is that which they didn't do right. But secondly, it will be who have they hired. Because it's their job to check that people they've hired are well documented. So actually, coincidentally, I've sent my officials there to check. I'm waiting for a report.